I think we are live. Okay, so hi everyone. Today I'm here with Athfah, who is a lecturer here at Birmingham City University, as well as your head of department for psychology. I've invited them here today to help you to get to know them a little bit more, since you'll be seeing them quite a bit throughout the year, and I personally think it's always a good idea to get to know your lecturers anyways. That's just me personally though. So, Afa, let's begin with a little icebreaker just to kind of get to everyone to get to know you. And I've chosen
Can
a
I
bit of a.
just say something first, if that's okay, Luke? So you can say I am kind of head of department, but I'm the course leader
Oh, yeah, yeah.
for the psychology course. But I think for everyone who's listening, you can say I am head of department as well.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, just wanted to clarify that.
I'll give it as simple as it goes. Amy is the actual head of the entire
Yeah.
psychology department, just Amy Cook, if
Mm.
that's more of a clarification. Either ways, let's start off with a little bit of an icebreaker then, just to get everyone to know you. I've set a bit of a weird one because, weird ones are fun, and this is a university, so I always like asking complex questions. I say complex. Let's set the scene. You've stranded yourself on a desert island with no ability to communicate with the outside world. On you, you have three items that you'll have to use to survive either for the rest of your life or for whenever help comes, whenever that is.
Yeah.
What three items would you bring? And, because this is university, we love asking the and questions and we love explaining. What skill or quality do you have that's going to help you survive on the island?
Okay. So just three items.
Yeah.
A knife, because I think it'll help with protecting me and also hunting, hopefully. Or I think it'll come in really handy. I love my sleep, and comfort in terms of sleeping. So a sleeping bag, I think, would be really good. And then I think a torch.
That sounds really good. All very practical choices, I would say. What about kind of qualities then? What kind of major skill or quality do you think that you would have that would really help you excel on the island, like above everyone else who comes here?
Naturally very optimistic person. I think optimism really helps because when you're deserted, on an island, you can quickly start panicking or,
Of course.
So I think optimism and also my practical ability. So I'm very practical. I like to get organized very quickly. So when I'm in a new situation, I like to kind of figure out where I am and what resources are there that will help me.
Yeah.
So I think being practical, organized, and optimism.
That sounds really good. Again, as I said, really practical answers. I think I've always sort of answered the question to be like, I always try and outsmart it a little bit. So like, I always say like food and war, but then I'm like, well, we're on a desert island, or theoretically it's going to be war there. I always try and outsmart it, and then I never end up being able to do that. It's an entire journey in itself. But yeah, I think those are really, really good skills and qualities. And I definitely think that if you were ever stranded on a desert island, you'd probably survive quite well. Yeah, I would like to think so. Well, that's all great, obviously. We've talked a bit about fictional situations. Let's move a bit more onto reality now, though. You're a lecturer here at Birmingham City University, first and foremost, over anything. What courses do you teach here? And assuming you enjoy teaching them, of course, what appeals to you about teaching those courses?
Okay, so I teach two modules. One is a level 4 module. It's a core module for straight single psychology students. It's semester 1, level 4, it's psychopathology. And then I teach an optional module at level 5, second year students. So that's semester 1 module, and that's occupational health psychology, or work and organisational psychology, basically. So my background has been that my PhD was work and organisational psychology, and then my research has been mainly mental health. So that's where psychopathology comes in. So I teach those two modules, and it is also my interest as well. I enjoy those topic areas. I mean, for me, it's about helping and supporting others and finding solutions. So teaching those modules does that for me. So occupational health is all about stress in the workplace, supporting individuals in the workplace, finding solutions when there are issues. Similar with mental health, there are so many different psychological disorders, and it's kind of finding the right treatment and therapeutic approach for individuals. And that's kind of where some of our research aligns with that, as well as the fact that I enjoy teaching those modules.
Yeah, that's a really really good answer, to be honest. And I also think that obviously I didn't take occupational health this year. This year I was a level 5 student. As a level 4 student, I took sort of the psychopathology module, which was obviously one of the core modules. We took it in our second semester, which was quite fun and interesting because it was obviously a bit of a different experience in the winter time. I always found. But I really personally enjoyed the subject. And I think whenever you're teaching, you can really sort of tell that your passions for it really come out. You really seem to, obviously, it is based around finding these solutions and exploring these really kind of complex questions that, well, you answer in an essay, but are quite hard to answer at first. And I think that having a sort of lecturer on that who, like yourself, who is so passionate about the module is so helpful as you go through it. All I'm trying to say here is basically, for anyone who's watching, you've got a good lecturer by your side while you're being taught it. But that's obviously all really interesting. And I think connecting to what you said previously, some of the courses that you teach obviously have application to what you're interested in academically. I think we've already covered. Without touching on absolutely everything, because obviously if you're like me, touching on every interest would mean we'd be here quite literally forever. What would you say your other top interests in psychology are, just broadly, why that would be the case? And finally, because we touched a little bit on your PhD as well, and obviously further research, do you have any further research that you've done that touches on those interests?
Yeah, so I guess my top interest is interventions, but when I say interventions, I'm talking about cross-cultural interventions.
Yeah.
As individuals, we're all different. We have different personalities, different backgrounds, but we also come from different cultures. And I think it's really important when it comes to therapy or solutions, they are a very standard box. So for me, it's about finding interventions that are applicable to everyone and having a practitioner. So when I say practitioner, I'm talking about therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists who are also aware of our unique qualities and adapting the therapy accordingly. So at the moment, I have a PhD student who's looking at IAPT service, so it's improving access to psychological therapies. It's a service that was set up about 10 years ago, and it offers therapy, mainly CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, to individuals who have a common mental health disorder, so depression, anxiety, and obsessive compulsive disorder and panic disorder, etc. So it's offering therapy to them, but for me, I know CBT, and something I talk about in my psychopathology module is that CBT comes from a very European, Western kind of culture, and it's based on those ideologies. So do we know, does CBT work for individuals from South Asian backgrounds or, Middle Eastern backgrounds, for example? So, or even, individuals from different quality, who have different personal qualities as well. So the PhD is looking at whether the interventions work or not, and what can we do to have interventions that are more culturally sensitive. So it's working with the IAP practitioners, services, and clients as well.
Yeah, I think again that's obviously amazing work to begin with. I took a cultural psychology module this year, and a lot of it is based around this idea of, people are individual, but while people are individual, the culture that they're brought up on radically shapes who they are as a person. I think that we as Westerners always get sucked into this idea that we're the absolute center of the world and that everything that we do applies to the absolute world. That includes research. However, I think in psychology, one of the things that is so important to learn so quickly is we really aren't the center of the world. People behave entirely differently depending even on the country they're on, even the local area they're brought up in. And that radically obviously influences so much, including access to mental health as well as what works with them in terms of mental health. My favorite example always being IQ, where IQ is radically shaped entirely differently based on what country you come from. And while I'm not a big supporter of the IQ sort of paradigm that's kind of came in the 20s, I certainly think that it's really interesting to look at that as a baseline.
Yeah, absolutely. And culture or our learning environment, things we learn become automatic because they're part of our subconscious and we don't realize it ourselves.
Yeah,
Some of the judgments that we hold, for example, it is also subconscious. So I think it's really important to have that knowledge and to have that understanding so you question yourself as well. And
yeah,
having high levels of self-awareness, I think, is really important as well.
yeah. Of course, that's really great. Um, I've already said, that it is really amazing that that sort of work is existing in BCU, and it's also really amazing that you're kind of spearheading it as well. I think obviously we touched a bit on that sort of research aspect, but I think we've went a bit too far in sort of what we should be talking about. So I want to go a tiny bit back,
Yeah,
and by a tiny bit back, I mean back to whenever you were at university doing your undergraduate degree,
yeah.
which obviously I'm not going to ask your age or anything here. Like that would be a bit rude to ask, but could either be a little bit ago or a while ago. Who really, what really matters?
It was a while
Um,
ago.
oh, yeah, of course. But so what interested you the most about your degree whenever you were doing your undergraduate degree? And what would you say the most important thing your undergraduate degree taught you would have been?
Okay, so I wanted to do the degree. I was interested in psychology because I was interested in helping people, supporting people, but at the same time understanding more about the mind and the behavior. Naturally, I was told when I was growing up that I'm quite an empathetic person. I read people very well.
Yeah,
Like I have very good intuition. So that kind of got me interested in psychology when I was at college. I did my A levels and then did my BSc psychology degree. Um, in terms of what I learned is that psychology is more than mental health. And I think often we think psychology is all about understanding human. It is all about understanding human behavior. But when we
yeah,
say understanding human behavior, it's more than mental health, more than anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, more than clinical psychology is what I
yeah.
want. And that's what I learned. So when I went to do my degree, I wanted to be a clinical psychologist. But then I came out thinking, actually, no, that's not my career. I want to do occupational psychology, and hence I did my PhD in that area. But yeah, just want to say that psychology is more than mental health. Is probably my message, really.
I do find as well, I've obviously been reading through all of the little introductions. I find them so interesting whenever people get to introduce themselves for the first time. I remember my first introduction, for example. I was so nervous whenever I was doing it all. But I always find that the top three biggest areas that people come to university for are either if they want to do something with crime, they want to do something with mental health, or alternatively, they want to be a counselor. And these are all really, really important and really, really good areas of psychology to study in. But I've always said that it's really important that you look at them through a more critical lens. Like, obviously, my area is forensic psychology. That's where I really excel in, and that's where I'm going to probably be lecturing in, after my PhD and all of that. And as much as I love forensic psychology, I think the main reason why I love it so much is not because of the whole true murder podcast sort of thing, which are really misaccurate of the actual psychology surrounding criminal behavior. For me, I love it because it does make that difference, and it looks at so much more than just this small sliver of criminal behavior. It looks at things like fraud and sexual assault, which is my area of interest in particular. And those little areas can be so niche, but they can go into such a wide range of detail. And I always tell people, be as open as you can be to the experiences that you learn at university, because you can come in thinking that you want to do mental health and then come out, I don't know, wanting to be an academic, for example. It can be an entirely different ball game. And yeah, you
Yeah.
can be an academic in mental health, but you can be an academic in anything, basically. And that's, I think, the main interesting part about university. And I would say that's one of my top tips. But following from my own top tip, what would you say your number one top tip for other students just starting their undergraduate degree this year would be?
I would say planning and preparation is key.
Yeah,
Um, I think it's something we do talk about a lot anyway. We will do during induction week for our new students. But I think planning and preparation is key because um, it's good to read a bit about the topic before you turn up to your lecture. or seminar, shall I say. Because if you just turn up and you've not done any preparation, you're going to struggle to understand some of the concepts, some of the theories. So it's always good to do some preparation beforehand. I mean, I still prepare for meetings. I'll spend 10-15 minutes before the meeting, just kind of saying to myself, what do I want to get out of this meeting? Because I think preparation is a must to get what you want out of, whether it's a seminar, whatever it is in life. So, I would say planning and preparing is key.
Yeah, and just to sort of add on to that, I always think that it's really, really good to treat university as if it's a job, because it is basically it's a full-time job being a student. You're going through quite a lot, you're doing quite a lot of work if you're doing university right, and you should be treating it as a full-time job and thinking about it with that mindset. If you're treating university as a full-time job, well, you would never come into work not preparing for the day ahead. You would never come into work just doing or just coming in at waking up at 5:55 and then coming in for 6. Unless you're like me during a very cold winter night in 2016, which is a bit more of a personal experience. But the idea is that you always come into work feeling prepared, and you always come into work feeling like you're ready for the day. And I always feel like the more you do that, the more you get out of university, alongside kind of speaking up and speaking often as well. That sort of confidence and that sort of preparedness really helps you excel at your university degree. And I always tell people, and it might be a bit of an exaggeration, but if you're wanting to aim for those firsts or even those high 2-1s, you should always try and strive for speaking often, preparing for your lectures, and actually enjoying what you're doing by finding little niches. Coming back to psychopathology, I chose schizophrenia as an essay for what I was doing. And I chose schizophrenia because it was the one thing. I'm not a big fan of, discussing mental health in too much detail. It's not my area of expertise, to say the very least. But within that, schizophrenia was always the one area that I found particularly interesting, and the area that I wanted to research in a lot more detail. So I always chose things that stuck to my strengths. And I think that really helps with your preparedness and your confidence and all of that. I think that is about the end of my questions. My barrage of very hard questions, if you will. I've definitely learned quite an awful lot about you. I think that what you do is amazing, to be quite honest. And your work in the university is absolutely great. And I really like sort of following it as I go through my degree. Would there be anything else you would want to say to the students before we go? Or
I would say that 3 years might seem like a lot of time, but trust me, those 3 years will fly by. So I know we've spoken a lot about planning and preparing, but do also enjoy the experience at university.
Oh yeah.
Because those 3 years will fly by. So do enjoy your time here. We're a friendly department. Ask for help when needed. Ask us questions. We're more than happy to support and guide everyone.
Oh, right, brilliant. So I think that, again, would be about it. Thank you to everyone who has obviously watched. This has been a really, really interesting interview, just for me personally. I'm sure it's been equally interesting for you as well.
I've really enjoyed talking about my interests and everything,
Yeah. I think for any student watching, if you want to sort of, if you have any questions or thoughts on the matter, you're more than free to comment below. You're also more than free to email myself about anything. And I'm sure Athfah, if you're more than happy to accept emails from students relating to this interview as well, I'm more than happy to.
Absolutely. More than happy for anyone to contact me.
Great. So I think with that in mind, I'm going to end the interview now. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and thank you so much. Let me just close this out. Bye.